Moose Scout, a long time ago. And you know, when you leave and come back, you really appreciate what beautiful town Redlands really is, especially on a magnificent day like today. And I'm sure this is a day, well, my mother celebrated a lot of days like this, and she lived here for so many years. And I know this is another day that she would have really appreciated, and certainly appreciated having us all here to pay our respects to her. So I feel very fortunate to have Marge as a mother, and one of the things I was thinking about is I think she was there when we needed us, but when we didn't need her, she wasn't around, and she let us do our own thing. And for that, I think we really appreciated her. And I know, you look at some of the restrictions we have on kids and stuff today, and I know all of us were prompted to get out of the house, get on our bikes. We rode all over town. The only thing we had to do was be home for dinner, and then as soon as dinner was over, we were basically kicked out of the house until it was time to go to bed. So,
the good old days.
I think that really helped our value system, gave us our freedom to do the things that we knew and did, and to become the people that we've become, for better or worse. So for that, I certainly owe a lot to my mom. Mom lived for 94 years. The last time I saw her was a few months before she passed away. We were doing an oral history of her, and one of my brothers, I think it was Pete, asked my mom what regrets she'd had in life. And she was 94 years old. She went through the Depression, and she definitely had a lot of hard times and a lot of ups and downs in her life. But she said she had absolutely no regrets at all. And I think for somebody 94 years old to go through what she went through, raising 5 kids, mostly on her own, is really a testament to her as a woman and as a person. And I hope that someday I would be able to say that I have no regrets. I don't think that's going to happen. I think I have a hell of a lot. Anyway, she was a special person in that respect, and we do owe a lot for that. So with that, I'm going to shut up because there are other people who want to say some things. And David directed Cassie that you were the next person that was going to say a few
really?
words.
Okay.
Yeah, my wife Cassie.
Go Cass. All right. I'm Phil's wife, and I was the first daughter-in-law for a long, long time. I first met Marge when she was 43 years old. And I walked in the door and she wrapped her arms around me and just hugged me. And I knew then that I was really going to like her. She taught me many things. She taught me to make a pie, and she told me never make a skimpy pie. And so now when I make any kind of pie, I say to myself, never make a skimpy pie. She taught me to make toffee. She taught my children to gamble. She taught them to play a game when they were really young called Screw Your Neighbor. She taught me to have a glass half full. But Marge's glass was never half full, and it was never half empty. It was always full. She had the ability to turn a pig's ear into a silk purse in her life. She did. I remember one Thanksgiving, it was long before Dick was in her life, and her refrigerator had broken, and so we were using this little refrigerator in the garage. And then her oven door kept falling off, and she put clothespins in it, and never did she complain. She said, well, I guess we're just going to have to take this bird to your house, Cassie, and cook it too. So we packed up the bird and took it to my house. I probably would have fallen apart at that point and said, we're just going out to dinner. But not Marge. She had such a positive attitude. And the one thing I will say is that she loved my husband, she loved me, and she loved my children and my grandchildren. And that was enough. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Cassie. This is a little something I put together recently, and a lot of it, I suppose, deals with our earlier years. Well, we moved out west in '56. We did get some kicks on Route 66. We settled on Roma Street and soon got adjusted to the Redlands heat. Mom and Dad split up several years later. We were just kids and we did our best. We stayed with Dad in Redlands regularly, and we all spent many a vacation day at Newport Beach. Dad would always take us to our sporting events and other vacation spots. In the early years, we'd sometimes have take-home food, tacotia and burger bar. Sage's dinner on Friday nights, such a treat and a great delight. We'd watch TV and Mom's favorite Perry Mason show with a dose of the Twilight Zone. We would watch cartoons on Saturday and go outside barefoot to play and play. Our big backyard had a clubhouse, treehouse, and underground fort. Broad jump and pole vault were our favorite sports. The neighborhood kids were always there. With the Roma Street and Olive Avenue gang, we would play in the circle, in the grove, and up and down the street. Kites, skateboards, and baseball, often in our bare feet. We had some pets back in those days, and a cat named Willie Mays.
A black cat.
We made our lunches and walked to McKinley, our nearby school, to follow the golden rule. She kept us kids in line and also enjoyed some very good times. Our times on Roma Street, they can't be beat. Well, we'd sing Beatles songs for Mom and Bonnie Libby until the tears rolled down their cheeks. We would dress like the Beatles and all get giddy. We'd walk to the Fox Theater and see the latest movies. James Bond and the Beatles. What could be more groovy? For many of those years, Mom worked with Dr. Heim, a Smith family friend, for a long, long time. She met a man named Blazevich, and during that time we went on some mountain fishing trips. They would go to Las Vegas and enjoy a show, and Frank would often bring home some dough. He had a big black Chevy with some fins. Well, in Las Vegas, my friend and I took it out for a spin. Later he found out, what a sin. Years went by and it was college time. We all went our separate ways. Mom and Dick met and courted for a while with a 4 a.m. drop-off with a kiss and a smile. They lived in the Grove and loved entertaining. They had many functions and guests, and they were among the best. Mom and Dick then planned their getaways. World travelers they were. Yes, they were pros. Traveling the globe near and far, and so it goes. Dick would like to talk Kiwis in New Zealand. Bali was Mom's special place, and they often traveled at an energetic pace. In later years, she met Max West, a Major League Baseball player, one of the best. After the season, he would stay with friends in Lake Tahoe and take a long, long rest. Attitude is everything. So have a good one, y'all, and let's not forget the spiked bourbon balls. She was so proud that her kids and grandkids were a college grad, and that weren't so bad. Now this memory does not end. It's just our thanks to you that we wish to send everyone here. We love you, Mom, and your spirit is here. Help us to keep our spirits and vision clear. Thank you, and I'd like to just say a couple other words. Recently, a great friend of ours, Eddie Smith, brother to Johnny and Kathy, passed away. And Mom loved Eddie, and Eddie loved Mom, and Eddie had a very unique and distinguished career. He was a clown with the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. And one time, on one of their trips, Dick and Mom were in, I think it was Denver, they were in Denver, Colorado, and they happened to notice that the circus was in town. So they went and met Eddie, and he was just ecstatic, you know, he just loved it. It was so great. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Number 3, David. I think Mom would just be so happy that we're all here just essentially having a good time and celebrating her amazing life. She didn't want a fuss made over her for a funeral or service or anything like that, so I think she would have felt this was just perfect. And she spent her last 7 years up in Woodland where we live, and I think she had a good time. Although, Mom, you can hear her saying nobody, absolutely nobody should live longer than 90 because everything just starts falling apart, right? But like my brother said, Mom was not one to complain, and that was one of her wonderful qualities and virtues that I'll certainly take with me. You know, make the best of life, you know, enjoy life and all of its ups and downs, and she certainly had plenty, but just a very cheerful, sunny person, you know, with 5 kids running through our house on Roma Street and all of our friends. You know, Mom enjoyed that, and some of my longtime Redlands friends are here today, and I really thank Artie, Mike, Charlie, Paul Eldridge, whose wife is sick so he couldn't be here today, but they all love Mom and coming over to our house, and she would always ask how the old Redlands buddies are doing, and that was just her, a very social person, a very optimistic person. Not to say that Mom didn't have faults, like she could be pretty opinionated sometimes. Like she wasn't really crazy about me getting married to Diane. Not at all. Like, who is this older woman? God, you know, vegetarian. That was tough. When I would come down here for Thanksgiving, Dick would have to scurry on over to Loma Linda and get some fake turkey for me. It wasn't necessary. But of course, she learned to love Diane rather quickly when Rose and Emily came along. But yeah, very opinionated, and you kind of had to appreciate her speaking her mind like that. But yeah, just a high energy person. We can all take just sort of her positive view on life with us, I think. Maybe Mike and Artie, but you remember Emerson's Mortuary down on Center Street? You remember that we would go down there and play football?
Yes. I played too.
Besides embalming people before they came up here, the Emersons would let anybody who wanted to play football there in summertime, I guess, or fall.
Great lawn.
Great lawn. And then they also sponsored our baseball team, Emerson's Mortuary.
That's great.
And what caught my eye one winter driving by there was this beautiful, shimmering, magical emerald lawn. And I said, Mom, why is that grass so green? She said, well, they mow it down in the wintertime when the Bermuda's dormant, and then they sprinkle ryegrass all around it. That's winter ryegrass. I go, Mom, that is so beautiful. Can we do that? She said, well, let's try. So got the lawnmower out, shaved the Bermuda, went to the nursery, sowed the ryegrass, and wondering, God, is it really going to work? We planted bulbs and flowers, and suddenly within 2 months, our kind of ugly, irrelevant yard looked pretty. The ryegrass had come up. And our next door neighbor over the back fence, Mr. Mills, Brian remembered he had a poodle named Bobo. His French yard was immaculate, and he would work out there every weekend and have this great tan. He'd listen to Jerry Doggett, Vince Scully on the Dodger broadcast. Immaculate. He'd peer over our fence and just kind of grimace. But he had heard that, God, the Wilkinsons did something to beautify their yard, and he came over and looked at it. It was like complimentary. That was pretty cool. So, and Mom loved roses. We had roses on Roma Street. She had them up on Highland. Dick and her had roses. When she moved to Woodland, First thing we did was plant roses. She had bouquets pretty much year round. But that love of gardening, I think, stayed with me, and now I think my daughter Rose is getting, and her kids are getting into gardening. But you fast forward 20 years, and Diane and I and the girls are living in Woodland, where we live now, and we rented a house for a year. I said, oh, I'm gonna sow winter rye again, and I did. And so this poem I wrote about that was written in 1985. Rose, you were 2 years old, 3 or 2 years old. So I'm just going to read it if I might, because this was inspired by Mom, and I promise you it's a short poem called Winter Rye. The day was green, like no other green. It was the time of the radiant winter ryegrass, blanketing the slumbering Bermuda turf. It was the time of my youth, when the ritual of sowing the rye was imparted by a mother who knew the gift of winter green, of the value of labor and beauty. And to this green wisdom, my daughters come to partake. They frolic on the tender rye, leaving their growing imprint. Then moving on to pick the sunny calendulas, because they are bright and invite the curious. They move on, while undisturbed the naked ash trees ponder the ensuing silence, as the endless tule fog bleeds into the electric green afternoon. So that was inspired by Mom. Now today, of course, we don't have any lawn. You know, price of water's too high, but that's a little ironic. But anyway, winter rye, I always think of Mom. So I think I'll end with that, except we're going to hear Mom reciting her own poem that she recited about 2 years ago on Christmas Day, or the day after, and somebody had given me a book on trees, and she said, oh, I know a poem, would you like to hear it? And you've all heard it before, but I thought it'd be fun to quickly hear Mom in a pretty young sounding voice for a woman 92 years of age reciting this poem. You got it turned on, please?
Thank you.
Here we go.
If I can remember, I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree who may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree.
All right, a lot of good stuff said today about Marge, Mom, Grandma, all good stuff. I'm Peter Roy Wilkinson. The Roy is named after my mom's dad, my grandpa, Roy Hunsinger. I've always been really proud of that name. Maybe not when I was in grade school and the teacher would call out middle names for roll, and then it was kind of embarrassing, but I've grown to really like it. You know, I'm the youngest of 5. I'm the baby of the family, which means that in attendance I have 4 siblings that I can always go to and say, you're older than me and you always will be. Not that I ever do that, but it's true. I was conceived in Indiana, born in Redlands, California. So I am the only one born here. Redlands is my hometown. And like Phil said, coming back here, especially on days like this where the mountains are crystal clear, I mean, what a place. It's awesome. It really was a great place to grow up. I mean, at that time, you could drive to Newport Beach in 1 hour. Imagine that today. You could be at Big Bear in, 30, 45 minutes. Palm Springs, same thing. It was fantastic. Great place to grow up, and the weather was mostly like this, So, my parents divorced when I was about 3, so I never really knew my dad as being in the house, and so my whole experience is my mom basically raising 5 kids from age 3 to 13. on her own starting in like 1960. So that was a way different time, and it was a big challenge. And I just remember, it kind of comes to me today that I never saw her down, I don't think. Maybe I saw her tired and like pass out on the couch and give us $20 to go to Taco Tia or Burger Bar. But I never really saw her down, I think,
Didn't believe in it.
Crazy, just to think about that. When we wrote her obituary for the Daily Facts, which had appeared in a couple days, we said we called her a force of nature in that obituary. And I don't think there's anything that could describe her anymore. She was a force of nature, anybody that knew her. And so, I think what I was most happy about, I lived, with her in that house on Roma Street till I turned 18. And like many, the day I turned 18, I moved out. But it was great. And what I was most happy about was talked about, she had a couple of marriages first that, had their rockiness. But when she finally met Dick in the early 70s, about 1970, 71, that was the love of her life. She finally found it. And it was great because she was still young enough to really enjoy it, and they traveled the world and just had a fabulous time. And he was great. He loved the kids. He loved the grandkids being around. They all have stories about Grandpa Dick and the orange groves and all the fun that we had up there. And what was also cool is that she'd stay up at his house like really late. There was at least one time when I was saying goodbye to a girlfriend at 2 a.m. at the curb, and I would see Dick's big Buick coming right around the corner, and I barely made it. It was awesome. So I really appreciate them staying out very, very late. But she always did come home. She always did come home. So,
4 o'clock.
So, a lot has been said, and I think we all know how great Marge, Grandma, Mom was. And she'll be remembered in such fond ways, I think, by everyone who she ever touched. What my wife Cecilia and I thought we would do today, are you around? There she is.
Right here.
When our dad passed away 15 years ago almost, I wrote a song that I sang at his funeral, and I have that. It's only been played a couple of times. It was played last year at Cecilia's dad's remembrance. Nice. So the song is about Mom, yes. I mean, she's departed. Hopefully she's in just a really great place today. We're the ones, though, that are left behind. All we have are memories, right? And so this song is really, yes, it's in remembrance of Mom, but it's really to us as well. It's called On Angel's Wings. Disclaimer, we both have a bit of a cold, so we're going to try to work through this. If you feel you've lost your best friend, then I have great news for you. Seems that life is just a passing phase, and we're all just passing through. If you believe in heaven above, then you know it's got to be that she is rising up on angels' wings, lifted high above with love and mercy, free from all her worldly things, and there's no sorrow there, rising up on angels' wings. Of hope and comfort just beyond the open door. So cast away your fears and dry those tears. You don't need them anymore. So if your eyes are filled with sadness and your heart is filled with pain. Understand that when you dry those eyes, you'll see the sun come up again. And if you believe in heaven above, then like her, you'll be free, and you'll be rising up on angels' wings, lifted high above with love and mercy, freed from all your worldly things, and there's no sorrow there. Free from every care. Ooh, there's no sorrow there. Rising up on angels' wings. R.I.P.
I'll be quick. I'm Brooke. I am the youngest granddaughter. I wasn't planning on talking, but that song actually reminded me of not long ago when I was in Woodland saying goodbye to Grandma. Uncle Dave organized some women to come and sing to her. And I was ready for some like Sweet Adelaide singing. That is not what happened. It instead was quite emotional, and Diane and I lost it. But Grandma didn't lose it. She loved it. She was kind of bopping her head along. She was the only one to clap them at the end because we were too busy bawling. But that's typical Grandma. One of the things that Grandma would say to me always, every single time I got off the phone with her, is study hard, get good grades, but make sure you have some fun along the way. So that can obviously sort of be altered for each and every one of our lives, but I do think that's something that we should all take with us. Study hard, get good grades, be sure to have some fun along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, if I say a little, very short thing. Okay, so I'm Janet. I'm my mom, Catherine. I get so emotional. Everybody else kept it together, and I'm like, my mom, Catherine, was Margaret's oldest sister. There were 6 kids in that family, the Huntsinger family. And Margaret and Catherine were the last 2 living. My mom died, like a year and a half ago. She was 99, and Margaret lived to be 94. So I just want to say to everyone with a Huntsinger gene here, like, take care of yourself, because you're going to be around for a long time, and you want to go out having as great a life as Catherine and Margaret did, because they did. But I wasn't going to say anything until I heard Margaret reciting this poem, because when my mom was about 95 or 96, she could recite that poem too. It was the only poem that she knew, and she would recite it for us. And I'm thinking now, where did they learn that poem?
Right.
When they were kids?
Yeah.
In grammar school?
We all knew it.
I wonder. And then that reminded me to say that I know David and I have always been the family historians in the Huntsingers, and we've done our share of the oral histories. David just and his siblings just, recently did a lot of Margaret's interviewing of Margaret in her last months. And as I was driving up here today with David and Diane, we were talking about family history and about the oral history. And so I want to just lay out a challenge there to you, of all of you in the next generation, that it would be a good time to capture all of your Wilkinson parents and their spouses and your various family members' memories, because by the time I'll just say by the time I managed to do an oral history of the Huntsinger, of Margaret and her generation, only 4 out of the 6 children were living. And even now in my generation, our generation, one of our generation has already died, and without having been remembered through an oral history. So I was a history teacher, so I'm sorry. This is just like what I'm doing. Is like, it's so precious to hear Margaret's voice, and it's so precious to read the oral history of the Huntsingers and Margaret's life. And I learned so much more about the Wilkinsons' life in reading that I'm kind of throwing that out there as a heritage thing today. The other thing I want to say on behalf of the cousins, because there's a lot of us cousins who all used to love to come and visit Auntie Margaret because she was the most fun and, you know, was always upbeat, and no matter what problems we were having with our own parents, you know, it was great to be around Auntie Margaret. And one of our cousins, Chris, and her sister Lisa Ferguson, they would call, you know what they would call Margaret? Auntie Fruitsy. She was Auntie Fruitsy, with obviously the connection to the Groves. And I always thought I was a little old for that, so I always called her Auntie Margaret or Auntie Margie. But I did think the first time that I visited the Grove, I did think Auntie Fruitsy was just exactly right, because I went into the kitchen, it was in the winter, fall, winter, I forget. But I went into the kitchen and I looked out the back kitchen window. And what do you think I saw?
Oh, yeah. Oranges.
The plastic oranges. The plastic oranges hanging from the tree that was closest to the kitchen window. Because she didn't like it when there wasn't fruit on the trees. So I thought, Auntie Fruitsy, that's right. Because who else would live in a citrus grove and put plastic oranges on the tree? So loved you, Auntie Margaret, and
Way back.
happy to be here, be able to be here today.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, let's get all 5 of us.
My primary role here is Johnny's this picture up.
You're doing great. You like maybe it can fit
Corpus or doll? Every single wall looks different. Every single, you know, that whole shady thing.
Wave to the camera, ladies. Kicking back on that beautiful porch.
Is that like my response? The little fuzzy thing?
Oh, American made one. You do?
Where are you going to get yours?
I gotta do some research.
I'm doing mine
Where physically?
exact location.
Oh, where physically?
That's been really fun.
Also, I don't know.
Where are you getting yours?
I got some tattoos here. I got a girl in San Diego.
Redlands, famous for its navel oranges that ripen in the middle of the winter. Yeah, you see the navel? Right there. And the smudge pots that keep the fruit from freezing in winter that I used to light in high school. You open up the smudge pot here and light it. There's oil, and flip off the lid, and it's just like a little heater, polluting heater. Beautiful spot here, the Smith Historic House.
It's
doing there, David?
Hi, Phil.
Or green, it's a warm. If it has blue, it's a cool. Yeah.
So finally, that.
Pete, skateboarding down here all the time. There are a lot of red ants through here.
There are.
And we caught pollywogs over in the grove.
I used to feed the red ants to my horny toad.
But this is fun skateboarding down the sidewalks here.
Especially when you hit a rock.
Yeah.
Went flying.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a little narration. What are we looking at here?
Oh, that is our old home, Roma Street.
We are looking out We are looking at what defines a snout house.
It's a great name.
Notice how well designed the garage is. The chief defining feature of this ranch house is a lovely garage.
It's called the Snout?
Snout house. It's got a snout on the front of it.
Yeah.
I know, I'm so cool. Thanks.
And that's because
It's a long, skinny lot.
right.
So the brick is still is that original brick?
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember, you sure?
Yeah, we would, you could see how little kids could play baseball right here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, one of the windows was rolled open once.
Yeah.
Ball went right
Wasn't always so tall for the window to be open.
And this berm was a little more cheap. Are you guys gonna knock on the door and see who's home?
I should have brought my old driver's license. It still says 207 Roma.
Some proof.
I would like totally let them in. These oaks are
I want to see that back there.
But it's a shame it's a shame the oak tree over here didn't survive. No. And this was a little crepe myrtle that never would grow right here.
That's right.
Remember our white fence that
The white
built?
fence, yeah. At times it was
This
there.
looks like kind of like it did when they grew up. The yard is like zero.
But this is the thing. We always used to weed and put the bulbs in and the flowers around the house.
We had the pyracantha on the
The
embankment.
birds would eat the berries and fly into our windows drunk.
Right.